Will the altcoins that you're holding ever recover? That's probably a question you're asking yourself, especially with Bitcoin and the altcoins now set to see a strong recovery because of what's shown on this chart. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why certain altcoins out there have massively outperformed the market. It's going to allow you to understand whether or not you should be cutting certain cryptocurrencies or whether you could stick with them and be confident that you're going to see some significant returns in the future. Without further ado, hit that like button. Let's get into today's video. Now, if you want to know what this line means, then I recommend you watch this video, which I made the other day, explaining why global liquidity is front-running Bitcoin. According to this model, we have literally 1 week left before Bitcoin and the altcoins start to recover towards the end of next week and potentially into the week after that. Now, that will then send us into an uptrend that's going to last at least until the end of May and potentially beyond that. Who knows? We obviously don't have that data yet. But I know how you're feeling. Many of the altcoins that you were rushing in and buying in December have had serious pullbacks. Some have pulled back as much as 69 or 70%, some even further than that. But I'm here to tell you something. It actually shouldn't be as bad as you think it is because of this. This is Solana back on the 14th of December 2020. And this is what happened to Solana after that point in time. It was down 70%, and as you can see, the price then begins to start climbing and climbing and climbing all the way up until Solana hits around a $200 and something price tag. What does this mean for us? Well, it means that despite the pain and fear that you've been suffering in the markets recently, it's all happened before. We've seen this happen time and time again, and there's a very good chance that you see your coins having a very similar recovery to this. So in order to understand why coins have been absolutely decimated recently and why certain coins have been really massively underperforming others, and probably they are the coins that you're holding, well, let me explain something. What I've done here is I've marked on the Bitcoin chart when we've seen significant moves up in the Bitcoin price from the start of the bull market. Now, I know many of you think that the bull market started in like October, November, but actually it started in pretty much November of 2022, okay, which is a long time ago. And since then, Bitcoin has been in an uptrend, okay? Various different times it doesn't feel like it is, but we've been in a bull market since then. Now, if we ignore that global liquidity for a second, what I've done is I've taken the liberty of drawing green boxes around points where we have had significant upwards movement without any sort of significant downturn. Now, you will see there is a little blip towards the downside here, but ultimately we have seen a fairly sustained up period here that lasted a good few weeks. Now, following that, we then have another sustained upward period where, yes, we do have a little bit of tiny turbulence in the middle, but ultimately we go 22 weeks from start of this pump towards the end of this pump. Following that, we then have one around the end of last year, one that many of you are still fresh in your mind because you probably got caught up in the end of it, that ran for 14 weeks. Now, in between these periods, we saw 25 weeks, which was the horrendously boring session that happened through the middle of last year, and then we had 14 weeks, which has basically happened over Christmas and into the start of 2025. And now many of you are looking at altcoins that you hold, and you are thinking, am I holding the right ones? Because this altcoin sounded amazing when I bought it because they had this partnership and that partnership and they were coming up with this and this was going on and they just launched and all these other things. But suddenly the price goes down and you forget all about those good things. I know, because I do the same. And you wonder to yourself, is it ever going to recover? Why does it seem like the altcoins that I'm holding have been bleeding far harder than the rest? Well, I'm going to explain to you exactly why that is using this particular chart. Because it's very key that you understand the importance of how long these moves are running for versus the performance of the altcoins that you are holding. Let me show you. Now, this is the main area to focus on, is the last two main rallies that we've had over the past 12 months or so. This one came to an end around 11th of March last year, before then running into a very long summer period that eventually finished around the 2nd of September, that many people are sort of starting to think that we're going to have again. But because of the liquidity model continuing towards the upside, that's not likely to happen this year. We will at least see a pump until sometime around May. Potentially after then, who knows? Okay, obviously we have to wait and see what's going on with that model. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to be kept up to date with what's happening on with that, so that you can understand where the markets will be moving over the course of this bull market. Now, what I've got on top is Bitcoin, and on the bottom we've got Ethereum. Now, through this 22-day period, you can see that Ethereum ran from around $1,500 a coin to around $4,000 a coin, which is a pretty significant move up for a coin with a market cap of that size. Following that, you can then see that Bitcoin goes sideways all the way for 25 weeks, causing Ethereum to drop from that initial high all the way down 46%, which is pretty painful. But now, I'm going to give you the real reason why everyone is in so much pain right now and why crypto feels even bleaker than it maybe did around this time last year. And it's because of this. This was a 22-week uptrend for Bitcoin and crypto, which meant that a lot of altcoins had a bit of a runway to see some significant gains without seeing much pullback. Yeah, just a little bit of sideways action before continued moves higher. But it is this sustained 25-week period that knocked a lot of the confidence out of the market. We then saw, guess what, a 14-week period of uptrend, which saw a lot of coins, like Ethereum, going up. Ethereum went up 100%. But after being beaten down for 25 weeks to then get 14 weeks of pump, it just wasn't enough to sustain a full-blown rally across the altcoins. So guess what happens? When Bitcoin then starts to go sideways and comes down, altcoins like Ethereum came down very quickly and very hard. And I know many people are saying this. Well, I'm not holding Ethereum, I'm holding Beam, I'm holding Sui, I'm holding Tars AI. Well, here's exactly why certain coins have performed better than others, and it is all to do with when they launched. Because of this. Coins from the last bull market, like EOS and Solana and whatever, have been stronger. They haven't seen such volatile moves up and down, and that's because, one, they've got bigger market caps, but also they've been able to build bigger communities who are more loyal to those coins. Communities as well of people who are more experienced in how crypto markets work, knowing that crypto markets go up and they come down. New projects, however, that launched in this bull market, which remember started at the end of 2022, have seen much more volatility though. That doesn't mean that they can't see significant recoveries like that Solana chart that we looked at earlier. Now let's get started and look at Beam as an example of this. Now Beam was one of the most talked about coins back in 2024, and that's because Bitcoin had a nice sustained run towards the upside, and a new coin like Beam that launched around that period of time caught a lot of attention, and that's because it is a phenomenally interesting project. When gaming eventually has its pump, Beam will do incredibly well. A huge amount of partnerships are building up all the time, a huge amount of new projects are being built on top of Beam. They're backed by some of the biggest VCs in crypto who will definitely start to pump money back into this coin once it gets the opportunity, and yet it looks like this. So why is that? Well, in the first part of 2024, Beam was one of the top performing coins. Everyone was talking about it. And that was because it's a very good coin, very good project. But unfortunately, there was then a 25-week down period, which meant that new coins that launched before that period lost all their excitement. Why? Because they were being bought up by a lot of newbies in the market. Because a lot of the more experienced old hats weren't necessarily holding the bags. There was a lot of new people aping into this coin around this time. Guess what? The price then comes down as everyone starts to panic sell through this 25-week period. People get bored. Okay, what happens then? Beam then has another 14-week rally from this low where it goes up 275%, which for a coin of that size in just 14 weeks is actually pretty impressive. But you will notice it puts in a lower high from here. And this is simply because 14 weeks is less than 22 weeks. And that's exactly why we then see a further sell-off here that is more dramatic than this one. Okay, because yes, this was over a 25-week period. This was a lower high, which meant it had less momentum, which meant that then the momentum fell away much quicker, and we saw a pullback even harder and faster. Okay, so typically a lot of projects have seen significant pain into the start of this year. Beam is one. But should you be selling and jumping away from Beam? This is a coin I still hold. Why do I still hold it? Well, guys, because as soon as the market wakes up and decides to run again, it will run like it has done in the past. No brainer, okay? It has all the fundamental reasons why it starts to pump as a crypto project. And how do I know that? Well, look at how it does over the last few years, okay? This is a very good indicator to you that this is probably a project you want to be involved in. And particularly right now, it's starting to show a little bit of a bottom coming in. Now, the beauty of this is if you were unfortunate enough to be buying the very, very top of this candle here, which hopefully you didn't because you caught some of my videos at the end of last year saying not to buy big green candles because you typically get big red ones. I didn't anticipate these big red ones, but you know, you get the picture. If you are currently down, let's say, what, 83%, that's a painful dip, trust me, you got $100 in this up here, you are now sat on what, $17? Let's say you put in another $17 down there. By the time the price gets back up to here, you now have $200 in your pocket. Okay, so you actually double your money by adding simple $17 down here. Get the picture? The beauty of these coins pulling back quite so aggressively is it actually makes DCAing into them incredibly easy to have actually a reasonable amount of effect, because eventually when it comes back up to here, you're going to be pretty much at break even. Okay, so this is why it's good to plan to DCA into certain coins, but not every single coin is the same. Now obviously that's not financial advice. Go and do your own research. Don't invest in Beam until you've gone and learned about Beam and understood whether it's a project you like or not. If you don't like it, that doesn't matter, okay? But don't judge projects you're holding right now by the price action, because the price action is very unfair on the quality of projects. Now, what about other projects out there? This is Tars AI, and you can see Tars AI hasn't really been seeing so much of a bounce recently. Now, what is Tars AI? Tars AI is the AI architecture protocol for Solana. It's basically Solana's AI flagship product. It's designed for you if you are a project builder and you want to build a project on Solana to be able to implement a bunch of different AI tools. So Tars AI is a phenomenally interesting project on Solana, which has been up until recently the top performing chain of this bull market, okay, because it's massively outstripped Ethereum in terms of its growth. It went from $8 all the way up to like $250 and caught huge amounts of attention. Yes, that's because of meme coins, but in the future we will see more stuff with AI agents and others pumping that coin once more. So lots of AI projects built on Solana will see significant upside again. Tars AI is absolutely no different from that for the reasons that I've talked about there. But if you're holding this coin and you're coming across to look at the chart, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, yeah, but this is not going to see much of a recovery, is it? Well, guys, why not? Look at it, okay? Look at what you're seeing in terms of when it pumped versus when it's come down. This is a new coin, okay? It came out in April of last year. Interestingly, it actually massively outperformed the wider market because it launched around this time that the Bitcoin price was slightly climbing in here. Lots of altcoins were dying off at this time. Tars AI pumped up very nicely and then just went sideways. It kept this low, just went sideways for months and months while most of the altcoin market bled. Then, as soon as we see a bullish momentum return to the market, Tars AI then climbs harder and faster than pretty much all the other coins out there, doing 336% in what, 4 or 5 weeks? Crazy, okay? Crazy gains for this particular coin. It was a coin that everyone was asking more about. Everyone wanted to be involved in. Everyone will become bullish on these projects once more as soon as the markets start to see liquidity again, which means all of these projects that saw multiple uptrends will see good performance again. Now, guess what? Obviously, every new project starts to see bad times towards the downside as soon as the markets start to bleed. And guess what? $100 up here is now worth $10. You add another $10 here, it gets back up here, you've now got $200, okay? Obviously, not financial advice, but it is a very easy thing to have a shot at, because to put in another $10 to try and double your money on that and basically be able to get your break-even price back to here, it makes perfect sense to me. That's why DCAing in at the bottom is probably the best thing to do. Okay, because if you made the mistakes of buying those big green candles before, then obviously try and get back into the game. Now, this is particularly easy because some of these coins have had multiple pumps and they've been sustained over a period of time. That's pretty much a no-brainer, in my opinion, that you're going to see good recoveries. But what if it's a new coin and it's launched and it's just gone seemingly straight down? This is Lingo, a coin that I also hold. Just to, you know, I'm using these as examples because I hold them and I've been questioning myself about whether or not I should carry on holding them or not. Now, Lingo, as you can see, launched on the 9th of December. And around the 9th of December, the market did what? It topped out. Okay, around the 9th of December, Bitcoin was pretty much topping out, which makes this almost the worst time to launch for a new project. It seems at the time like the best time to launch. And the problem, everyone rushes in and buys it because it's the one that everyone's talking about. It's a new project, it's exciting, it's shiny. Everyone goes and buys. Guess what? The market then comes towards the downside. Everyone who panic bought up here panic sells it, and it makes it look like a terrible project, because in your mind you're telling yourself that the price action is reflective on the quality of the project, which is absolutely not true. Okay, Lingo will see significant recovery towards the upside as soon as the markets regain confidence and start to move in the right direction once more. Okay, and the beauty of these coins, again, they are down a lot from those highs. Now, obviously, I'm hoping that you're smart enough that you didn't buy the absolute tippy top of these candles. But I know if you're new to crypto, that's inevitably what happens. Okay, because you buy when you feel like it's the right time to buy, when actually you should buy when you feel like it's a terrible time to buy. Typically, which is at the bottom. But you see, this is very common, okay? This isn't just Lingo. Loads and loads of projects that launched recently did a very, very similar thing. Great quality projects launch, they pump, they then come down pretty hard. Again, this is Humans AI, Heart, another token that sees very good rallies as soon as confidence returns to the markets. Okay, you can see this was this period of time here, this 14-week period, you see Heart AI goes up very, very aggressively. Go back to that 22-week period before. Again, Heart AI sees a very significant move towards the upside. It's a no-brainer, okay? They come down hard when the market gets a bit scared, but that gives you another bite of the apple. This is like the most perfect opportunity right now in terms of what these projects are offering you. Now, do they go up straight away? Well, potentially over the next week or so, markets could go sideways. Maybe you have a tiny little dip towards the downside. But the chances are, in the next couple of weeks, things are going to improve in a massive, massive way. Now, just an exception to the rule. If you find coins that launched earlier back last year, okay, and have been through multiple of these green areas and are yet to see any significant recovery, then you could probably argue to yourself that maybe you shouldn't be involved in these coins. This is Gaming, a project that was really hyped up and really exciting at the end of 2024, had a very exciting launch, but unfortunately, they launched on, guess what, 25th of March, which is when Bitcoin was at the top here. Bitcoin then went down towards the side. Gaming then sells off really aggressively. Okay, it continues to sell off aggressively until this next period here. But you can see from this next period here, there is no real significant rally that comes in during this period of time. Now, obviously, we weren't necessarily expecting it to get back up towards this level. But if you are seeing a significantly lower high and really limited ability to pump from there, then I would suggest that maybe this is not the one, because it's just continuing to die, sliding towards the downside. Now, unfortunately, you can't necessarily predict which projects will end up doing this, but this is a very good indicator to follow. Now, I talked about this at the end of last year, back in the autumn, where I was suggesting that certain projects, I think including this one, were maybe worth avoiding because they just really failed to show any strength after the market kind of improved. And actually, you can compare the quality of the project compared to when it launched and its basically performance, judging by all of this, okay? Because if you look at Aether, just as an example, a project that I'm a big fan of, you can see that Aether was looking really pretty strong when it launched, considering that it launched on the 10th of June, which was around here, which actually was a terrible time to launch because the whole market was bleeding and continued to bleed until September. You can see that Aether sustained this really pretty well. And then from there, it then has this time to recover. So actually, despite launching into a pretty poor market, Aether then has this rally up around 122%. But guess what? Until the 9th of December, when the market bleeds, Aether then starts to bleed towards the downside. All of these projects, though, will recover in a very significant way as soon as the liquidity returns to the market. Now, I said as soon as the liquidity returns to the market, but what I mean is this. We will see Bitcoin starting to recover nicely, okay? Bitcoin will recover first because money is flowing into Bitcoin from institutions, from ETFs, from everything else. From there, you will start to see the larger market cap coins, the XRPs, the Cardanos, the Suis, the Solanas, everything else that's on perpetual futures contracts on Binance and Coinbase starting to pump as well as the market makers start to pump liquidity into them, causing people to FOMO, causing money volumes to start flowing on those major exchanges. A lot of the smaller cap coins that aren't really operating on perpetual futures contracts won't see a lot of those early moves because they're not being moved around by the market makers. It will take a little bit of time before the overall market, you, me, and everyone else starts to feel confident again to start aping money into coins, and which is why some of the smaller market cap coins can take a little bit of time to get running once more. Now, over the weekend, I will make an update on my own portfolio coins that I'm still holding, etc. So if you want to see those coins that I'm still holding, I've mentioned a few of them in this video, then make sure you subscribe to the channel with the notification bell turned on. Now I can look across the board at different coins. All you've got to do is think about when these coins were launching versus these green boxes. This is Cookie, okay, a project that everyone was really excited about. Unfortunately, they launched in January. Look at what happens in January. The whole crypto market goes down. So guess what they do? They go straight down. This chart looks horrible because it's all red. There's no green on here to make things look better. But it doesn't mean by any means it's a bad project. They just time their launch badly. But this is why people keep asking me, when's Perceptron going to launch? Well, it's not going to launch because we don't want to launch this. Okay, we want to launch somewhere around the bottom of the next leg up. Okay, so what we want to wait for is a little bit of a push here and then launch into a nice runway rather than launching at the top of these liquidity spikes or rather than launching on one half the way down. Okay, so this is why we're taking a little bit of time before we go and launch Perceptron. Now, guys, if you are looking to DCA into any crypto projects, then I highly recommend you do it through an exchange that has a huge amount of different coins available. I personally use Weeks and I also use Bitchinix, both linked down below in the description. These exchanges do not require KYC and they also also have some of the lowest fees across crypto. They also enable you to buy into a huge amount of different crypto coins because many of the small market cap coins are available there, but they're not available on Coinbase, Binance, etc. So if you want to use an exchange with really low fees and huge amount of different coins, no KYC required, then sign up for the links down below because you'll also get an additional bonus. Now guys, hope you enjoyed that video. There will be more to come in the coming weeks. Things are going to get exciting, so make sure you're ready for it. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.